So if you saw my last video where I was talking about consistency, and I mentioned about how over the last 20 years, I've actually been struggling to stay consistent. And I sort of outlined the reasons why. And I'll put in the description, you can go and have a look at that video itself. But then towards the end, I actually talked about things that have stayed with me. In other words, I was looking at the natural traits that have carried throughout my life, despite all the external changes that I've gone through, both through choice, through not through choice, like moving environment, societal, all that, things that are out of your control. And then that led me on to this question, which I'm going to look at today. And that is simply this. If I'm still driven, why do I keep hitting a wall? Now, as I mentioned before, I've always had this ability when I was in my younger adult years, and it's only kind of in the last 20 years, and I'm getting into, I'm right at the top of, or late 50s, that I've noticed that I've actually struggled to maintain consistency or to follow through with goals. Like I would start something, maybe stop, so it's still there. And then, as I said, I identified things within me that haven't changed from when I was young. They have carried through no matter what. And I think about that question. There's a pattern that happens, and it's always happened before, like when I was going after other goals, where you hit this resistance. And sometimes for some of you who know what it's like to achieve goals, and that resistance is always there. You just work through it. And then we think about the old, what is it, Nike slogan, just do it. But recently I actually found that it's just getting harder and harder to either push through that resistance. And I just want to give up too easily. And there are a number of reasons. So when it came to doing this YouTube channel, an interesting thing happened, because I just thought the hardest thing was going to be uploading it, or seeing myself on camera, uploading it, and then put it to public. And I squared it off as, this is an issue of the fear of being seen, because I don't like being on social media, so I just thought the whole thing was packaged. But an interesting thing happened. On the day that I was supposed to make the video go public, I hit this wall of resistance, and that's how I would describe it. It was just this unexpected, jarring, I couldn't move forward, in any way. I'll illustrate it by describing what it felt like for me. So in the morning, first thing is I wake up at 4 a.m. That's my normal wake up time. And first thing I noticed before I even got out of bed was my energy was low. And I had a good night's sleep. I sleep quite well. Second thing I noticed was my mood was polar opposite to how I felt when I went to bed the night before. Now, if you think of a mood on a scale like an elevator or a lift going up and down, so I'll describe it as my mood being down in the basement. And this was so opposite from when I went to bed that I remember thinking, what's going on? I mean, I just went to sleep, and all of a sudden I'm feeling, I don't know. So I got up, and then the next thing I noticed, because I'm getting used to doing this now, because the whole point of staying true to who I am is to follow signals of what I'm feeling, because a lot of times I do ignore it. And the first thing I notice is my normal sign, which is the physical sign, which is a pit in my stomach. That's normal. That's my first sign that something's up, and even before my brain can logically catch up. The second thing I notice, it traveled up to my throat, and then it sort of got bigger, like it was a lump in my throat. And then afterwards, I noticed the mind suddenly kicks in, and all of a sudden, it's trying to explain and justify why I was suddenly feeling this way. And so it starts saying things like, the video isn't great, it's not good enough yet. You should have, maybe you should re-record this section. The sound on this doesn't sound great. You don't look great. It's all that whole looping of the mind to justify why I was feeling that way. And then there was one more thing that I noticed is the night before, it was so easy. All I had to do was to get up and in the afternoon, open up my computer and then flip the video to make it go public. The thought of doing that, the why I was doing this whole thing was gone. Like there was just no emotional connection and no spiritual connection, like to the bigger purpose as to why I was doing this. That was gone. And all of a sudden I sat there thinking, I couldn't literally, if I'm inside myself, I couldn't see past. It was like this wall, not just in my mind, but it was throughout. Yeah, the whole body. It was almost like I was physically, and without physically actually doing it, but it was like every time I thought about it, it would be like I was just slamming up against a wall. So what I decided to do in the end was to sit there and to break that wall down for the first time. Because in the past, what I used to do when I was younger and going after goals, I did what we had to do then. You just stayed focused. You kind of block your peripheral vision out and you just had your eye on the end goal and you just put your head down and just went for it. The other thing I used to do was, as I said, in the last 20 odd years, I started getting in the habit was as soon as I hit that wall, I'm out. And I would just turn around and just give it up. Okay, obviously it's not meant to be me. I don't know what the issue is, but I just don't have time or energy to hit this wall. This time I decided just to take a moment that morning because I felt like I had too much to lose. And I decided to choose a different option to what I had, and that was to grab my notebook. I'll just grab one over here, similar to this. It was one I have in my bag, but it's a field note one. And I just went through and I just identified every single layer that I was feeling the discomfort and just wrote it out real quickly. And I didn't have long because I had to get off to work. So probably looking at 10 minutes max. And then what I noticed is when I finished, rather than analyze it, rather than, try and figure out what it was trying to say to me, that wall suddenly softened within me. And all of a sudden, it kind of just released this tension that I had felt. And I was able to just relax a bit. It didn't go away, but another thing I would describe with that wall is during that moment, it was thick. If I'm sort of looking from within to what I could see in my mind's eye, it was thick and it was solid. By writing it out just to do something about it, it became more transparent. And then all of a sudden, I was able to reconnect. So I looked at it and I realized that there are the different levels that I think I wrote about or I sat down and afterwards and did it properly. It was, I identified energy level, mood, physical, mental, and spiritual. And that is what that wall was made up of. And then all of a sudden, by the afternoon, I knew that I could get back in and post that video. What I found by doing that compared to what I did before, like, why didn't I just put the blinkers on and go forward? And it came back to what I said in my last video, that the goals that I had achieved, I felt like underwhelmed. Like I had just blindly gone through it. This time, doing this, and I decided I want to do it different. I wanted to maintain all of me. And so maybe seeing that resistance and listening to what it was trying to tell me at that stage, it was probably fear, anxiety. I mean, there wasn't really anything specific. And the other thing it can give you as well, when you sort of sit there and work on it, or you run the risk of not sitting there and addressing it, is I realized that wall that I'd been ignoring all that time may have had important information that was going to help add value to my end goal of what I wanted to do. But what I did feel after I'd hit publish is I felt that all of me, if this makes sense, the whole, my conscious being, I think is a good way of saying it, the real me was present at the time that I did it. So I didn't leave part of myself behind like I did before with those other ones, which may have accounted for me feeling a bit empty when I achieved those past goals. Okay, that's it for that question. I'm not sure if my reflections help, but yeah, that was an interesting observation that I had. And that explains what had happened in the past when it came to doing that. Right. So it'll be interesting to see what question I come up with or comes up for me tomorrow. But if you have any questions, or you want anything clarified, or if this resonates, please leave a comment down below so that, I'll be more than happy to have a look at it. Because it'll be good to know if anyone else has felt this as well. Because I'm sure I'm not the only one. And really it is about reconnecting rather than doing what I did in the past, which was just completely ignore those signals, because all I wanted to do was to get to the outcome and, sort of not really think about anything else. Okay, I will see you in the next video.